you guys, welcome back to my channel. I've got in this video a bunch of books that are about libraries or books or take place in bookshops, anything related to books. And what better frame of the year to talk about books than during autumn, October, spooky and towards the winter season. So I've got a lot of books that I wanted to go through with you. So let's get right into it. I am going to start off with the first book that I have, and this is Pages & Co. Tilly and the Book Wanderers. And if you haven't seen my videos before, I raved about this book like crazy. This book is the epitome of perfect cozy settings, Christmas trees, bookshop, and having a cup of coffee while you're sitting by the fireplace and drinking it and reading something amazing. But what happens in this book is you actually go inside the stories. So in this first book of the series, we go inside Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and we also go inside Anne of Green Gables. We meet Anne, we meet Alice. So those characters come to life. It's just amazing. I mean, it's a book about books, and at the same time you also set up with this amazing atmosphere. And it also takes place in a bookshop, which is like the best thing ever. And there's also like this really sweet baker shop that's right opposite. And then we also see a lot of scones and a lot of sweet items. I don't know what is not in this book. It's an absolute delight. So I would highly recommend this book, especially at this time of the year. And yeah, this is the first one. I've got the second book with me when I started sometime later this year. I'll let you know what I think about that as well. So that's the first one. The next book that I'm recommending is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. And you guys, I cannot talk about this book enough as well. I haven't literally talked about this book yet, but this book is about a book club that is set up, but there's lots to it. So this place takes place during war, and one of our main female protagonists, she finds out there is a book club that is being set up somewhere in like a remote island of England, and she wants to go visit that book club. And she goes there because she finds this really nice story that she wants to tell. But then she realizes that the book club is not actually a book club, but it's actually just a bunch of people who are trying to escape the war, because otherwise they'll just get caught. And they all say that that's a book club, and they form a group and meet every day in this broken down place where they have lots of sweets and talk and chat. And then of course there is love that blossoms in the story as well. So this takes place in 1946, like I said, during the brink of war with the German occupation, and it takes place in this island called Guernsey. That's where our lead protagonist Juliet, she goes to, because she receives this anonymous letter that asks her to come there. Basically, that's how she knows about the book club. And the random name Potato Peel Society is just a name that the book club members come up with to name their book club when they're being questioned by German soldiers. So it's a great book. It's historical fiction, but because it has a book club, there are lots of stories and fun and lots of things that you can get out of this book. It's an amazing book that you should definitely add to your recommendation list. So that's another one. Next book that I wanted to recommend is The Binding, and this book talks about bookbinders. And in this particular book, what happens is basically books are binded, and in each book a memory of a person gets stored in, and once that memory gets stored in, then the person completely forgets about the memory. So again, this takes place in somewhat like the early 1900s or end 1800s, so it's got like a bit of a historical fiction theme to it. But at the same time, this is a beautiful book that talks about books and memories in particular. And I wanted to recommend this because it like touches a bit on Gothic literature as well. So I completely love this book. This is an amazing read, and if you love reading books about writers and authors and bookbinders, then this is your go-to book from this recommendation list. The next book that I wanted to recommend is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. And this is a relatively new book compared to the other books that I was just recommending. And this borders on fantasy. And in this book, we follow a boy who's been stuck in a library for years and years together, and a girl who's been stuck in dust for years together. How their stories spiral around each other, how they intervene, and that's where the story begins. It's a beautiful book, specifically if you're into libraries, and lots of old books with ancient dust on top of all these books would be perfect for you to read. And that's why I wanted to recommend this book. The next book I'm recommending is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaffer. In this book, we follow a best-selling children's author who quit writing under mysterious circumstances, and suddenly he resurfaces back with a book that contains a one-of-a-kind competition. So those who kind of gets to read the book has to go through a series of contests in order to win, and she's one of our girls in the book is one of the 4 contestants who actually end up getting that book. And so there is a chance for her to win the copy and go to a mysterious island where there is an ultimate twist that happens. So this is like a thriller, but at the same time it's very fun and engaging, and I thoroughly enjoyed the whole plot line of this book. So I really wanted to recommend this book. The next book that I'm recommending is The Bookshop on the Corner by Jenny Colgan, and this is one of my favorite books. I totally love Jenny Colgan and her books. There are a lot of other books that I would also recommend to you, but this one in particular talks about a bookshop. So we have our lead protagonist whose main goal in life is to match a person with their perfect book. She's like a literary matchmaker, and then what happens is she buys a little van and becomes a bookmobile, and she goes to like a sleepy little village in the middle of nowhere. And of course there's going to be a lot of love as part of this book as well, like there is in all of Jenny Colgan's books. So I would recommend this if you're just into very cozy surroundings, a small cottage by an English side, and lots of coffee and literary books and laughs. So definitely another book that you should check out. The next book that I want to recommend is Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Now, granted, I wasn't like a huge fan of this book, but I still want to recommend this because this actually takes you into books. So what happens here is you have different viewpoints that happen for the protagonist, wherein the future can be changed based on what the protagonist reads. So it's like a lot of opportunities to live a life that you could have lived. So you choose a certain life that you want, and suddenly you get immersed inside that book and you start living like that life, and then you don't like it and you feel like this is not the life you expected. Then you can come out of it and start living a different life from a different book. So the reason why I want to recommend this, because it was a little different from all the other books that I've recommended. This is a tad bit on the self-help lines, a little bit Mitch Albom. So it isn't necessarily a self-improvement book, but there are lots of morals and lots of things that you can learn, that you can apply on your real life, and that's how this book is also written. So yeah, just another book also for you to consider if you like going inside a book and living lives every time a book changes. So the next book I wanted to recommend is Lost in a Book by Jennifer Connelly. Now, I have read this book quite some time back, but I've always remembered it. And when I wanted to make this video, this book was the first book that came into my mind because it is perfectly related to what this video was about. So in this book, we follow Belle. This is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, except that in Belle's point of view, when she goes inside the huge library in Beast's castle, there she goes and reads many books, and out of the books that she reads, there's one book called Nevermore, which is an enchanted book, and every time she reads it, she gets transported into, like a door opens and she gets transported into this enchanted world, and she lives all her dreams and everything through this book. And I thought it was lovely. It's just a beautiful insight into Belle's head and her imagination when she goes inside Nevermore. And in this land, she meets a lot of fun, quirky characters that we also will read through the course of the book. So if you're a Beauty and the Beast fan and you like Belle, this is definitely a retelling that you should consider reading. The next book I wanted to recommend is The Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George. And this book, you guys, is beautiful. So what happens is we have our main protagonist, who's Monsieur Perdu, who calls himself a literary apothecary. So from his floating bookstore in a barge on the Seine, he prescribes novels for the hardships of life. Using his intuitive feel for the exact book a reader needs, Perdue mends broken hearts and souls, but the only heart that he cannot seem to mend is himself. He's still haunted by heartbreak after his great love disappeared. She left him with only a letter which he has never opened. So after Perdue is finally tempted to read the letter, he hauls anchor and departs on a mission to the south of France, hoping to make peace with his loss and discover the end of the story. So he joins another amazing author and an Italian chef, and he travels across the country's rivers, and it's just so scenic and atmospheric. It is, even if it isn't for the book per se, I think for the scenery and for Paris per se, you've got to try this book. And there's so much of lessons learned through this book as well that I just thought it was brilliant. And as always, this has a beautiful, beautiful bookshop that's at the center of the entire plot. And I think that's just a given that it's going to be one of the best books. So there you go. Those are all my recommendations for books about books or bookshops or libraries or anything of that sort. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I will see you in another video. Bye.